Hello everyone, and thank you for joining me on this Let's Learn. Now, before we get things started with Microsoft Excel, I just want to go ahead and put a face to the voice that you'll be hearing. My name is Angel, and I'll be the one guiding you in today's session. Now, for today's agenda, we'll learn how to navigate the Excel ribbon, we'll learn how to format our worksheets, work with data, formula, and functions, as well explore display and printing options. Excel is a Microsoft spreadsheet application. Using Excel, you can perform multitude of functions such as run calculation, make lists and charts, and it also helps you to analyze and store information. It can also help you track data and much more. Our goal for today's presentation is to help new and novice users become comfortable with the basic functionality of Microsoft Excel. We will spend the first part of today's session discussing what Excel has to offer and how to navigate the application. We will create a workbook or worksheet and then use formulas and functions to create work with said content. Now, let me go ahead and just minimize this PowerPoint presentation and we'll go ahead and jump into today's session. Now, I've went ahead and included a link in the description so you can follow along. I find that the easiest way to learn is to follow along. So this is actually included from the Microsoft webpage. So if by chance this does not work anymore because Microsoft stopped supporting this page, let me know in the comments and I'll go ahead and put a replacement in the description. But I just click on download content. I'm going to open the file now. And as I open the file, I'm going to click on enable editing. Now from here, we're going to jump into our workbook. And right down here, you'll see sheets. These are our worksheets. So we're going to start off by clicking data. And from here is where we're going to go on out. So within our data is where we're going to start our today's session. So you can go ahead and just hide these. I'm going to just right click on demonstrations here and click on hide. Click on links, hide that as well, since we're not going to be focusing on that. All right, now that we're here on our Microsoft Excel, it may look a little different. No worries. It's just because I'm on dark mode. Now that we're here, let's just go ahead and explore our ribbon. And let's start by clicking on File. Once you open up Microsoft Excel, you will be greeted with a page just like this one here, where you'll have your existing Excel spreadsheets or your workbooks right over here. If you go down to New on your left-hand side, you'll also find templates where you can get a quick jump start on creating calendars, on creating schedules, and so on. You'll also have some tutorials over here so you can continue your learning at your own pace. Keep in mind that today's session is merely a level 100 to learn the basics of Microsoft Excel. Now from here you have other options here. So you can go to information, you can save once you start working on a spreadsheet. Otherwise, if you haven't started working on a spreadsheet yet or a workbook, then you won't have these options. But once you do, of course, you'll have those options available. I'm going to go back by clicking on the back arrow here, and now we're going to focus on our ribbon. Now, on our ribbon here, we're going to, again, focus on the basics. So here we have our clipboard where we can cut, we can copy, we can paste, we can undo from here. And if you hover over any of these tools, you'll see that it also will give you a description as well as a keyboard shortcut. I find that using these keyboard shortcuts are very useful and can probably expedite your work as well. So if we wanted to go ahead and select any of these cells, each of these boxes are represented, are called cells, and are represented by whatever you select here. So for example, this 2,461 is our B column and our row 2. So if you pay attention to this upper left-hand corner here, you'll see that I'm currently selected B2, and it will also reflect on our formula bar right over here as well. So if we make any changes from here, it will also reflect on that cell. Now, you can also copy these by simply clicking on copy if you needed to, if you needed to cut or copy or whatever the case is. You can use these here, but again, I like using keyboard shortcuts. And if you need to copy everything, you can simply select the first cell and you can drag it across. and let it go. And once you let it go, you can just simply hit Control Copy. If you wanted to go ahead and paste this, you can press Control V. If I wanted to go ahead and paste it right over here on our G1, and it'll go ahead and paste it. You'll notice that some of these cells don't have that information, and that's because when it pasted here, it did not provide enough space. If you wanted to go ahead and give it space, you can just simply go in between the columns and double click, and it will go ahead and provide that space for you. If you needed to undo, you can simply press Control Z, and Control Z will undo everything for you. You also find that cutting is also very useful. So if you needed to move this instead of copying it, you can just simply click on Cut, or you can press Control X. And again, all you have to do is paste it. If I wanted to move this, I just selected Cut, and I can paste it over here, and it'll paste on this side. Again, it will hide if it's not enough space, where you can just simply double click on the rows, and it'll go ahead and give you those options. Give you more real estate. Now, again, you can press Control Z to undo whatever you just did. And from here as well, you have plenty of other options. If you don't need to fill in the boxes, you can just simply select what boxes you wanted to fill in by going into Format. And we can go ahead and fill in, for example, I want this to be green. I can do that. I want the text to be white. I can do that from here as well. Now, if you see, every single cell is currently boxed in. However, this is just simply for your visualization. It doesn't pop up when you're printing anything. If you wanted to go ahead and have these lines more prominent, you also can go to the Format section and go right over here where it says bottom border. You can just simply select the downward arrow, and it'll give you a lot more options. So you can add the bottom border, top border, or put borders all around by simply clicking all borders for that selection. And you can see it's a lot more prominent. It pops out a little bit more. Now, when it comes to formatting, it's quite simple, so I'm not going to spend too much time over here, since this works almost exactly like it would on your Word, Microsoft Word, or most any other application as well. So with that said, I'm going to go back to my spreadsheets, to my worksheet right down here. So we're going to click on Cell Format. And this is where now we're going to learn how to format our cells here accordingly. So currently we have our styles here. We have an unformatted, which we're going to go ahead and click on these, and we're going to format this to look exactly like it would on our targeted section here. So for example, we're currently on our general. It says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and over here it says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it looks exactly the same. So now we're going to start doing the same thing for our numbers. So starting with our numbers here, this is where we're going to spend a lot of time here. We're not going to leave our home ribbon. We're just going to spend a lot of time here on our numbers section. And within our numbers section, I can see here that it is missing a comma, so it can represent or look exactly like our target. And it currently has 3 decimal points instead of 2. So from here, if I go down, go up to where it says numbers and it says general, I can select number here. And now it'll give me that exact decimal point, but I see that it's missing a comma as well. So we can go and just simply click on the comma, and it'll go ahead and now look exactly the same way as it does on my target. Now, sometimes it gets a little bit more complicated, and you won't have those available resources right away. So for example, over here, I want this to look exactly like it looks on my target, where it has a parentheses, and in red, this is often used a lot on accounting, where I can go back to where it says general, and I can click on where it says more number format, where it'll open up my more number format section here. Where from here, I can go ahead and select number, and I can select the one that looks very similar here. So in this case, it's our red parentheses, and I'll see a sample right over here as well. In addition, I can see that this has 2 decimal points, and again, this has 3. Where we control that is through here. It says decimal places. So it's currently under 2, which is perfect. That's where we want to leave it. But we also want to include the comma. Use the thousand separator, or the comma here. By selecting that, now we can click OK, and it'll go ahead and now reflect, and it looks exactly the same as our target. Within our currency, we can do the same thing here. Within our currency, our first option here is pretty easy. We can simply click on the dollar symbol here. And by clicking on the dollar symbol, I can see that it's actually not looking quite the same. I can click on the downward arrow and I can see other options here. Or again, I can just simply go to the more options, more number formats, or I can use a shortcut right down here. So right next to numbers, I can just simply hover on this where it says number format, where it will open up that option. It simply functions as a shortcut. So I can click on this. And now from here, I'm currently on currency. So I want to select my category here and select currency. From here, I want to go ahead and make sure that I select the number. So let's see over here. And click OK. And as you can see, now it looks exactly the same way. We're going to do the same thing with the bottom number here. So it says a negative instead of it being a parentheses. So again, we're going to select that, click on the more options shortcut, and we're going to select our currency, where again, we're going to select the one that looks exactly the same way, and we're going to click OK. And now it looks exactly the same way. Now, we also have our date. Date functions almost exactly the same way. However, it's going to give you a lot more options. So if we click on that more options here, there's going to be two of them that looks almost exactly the same. We have our March 14th over here, but the difference is that I want to make it look exactly like this one, whereas if I select the one on the bottom, it will give me a 0. I don't want a 0, so I'm going to select the one on the top and select OK, and now it looks exactly the same. With time, same thing here. We can select the time. In this case, it has the seconds, so we can select on the more options here. And within our category here, we're going to select time and select one that has seconds, such as this one here. Click OK, and there you go. Now, when it comes to percentage works a little different than you would expect. Percentage doesn't just add a percent sign on whatever you typed. It will multiply your entry by 100 and then add the percentage symbol. So it's converting it from a decimal place to a percentage. If I just write 12, then it will convert the percentage format and it's going to give me 1200 instead. So that's why you see 0.12345. So in this case over here, if I select this percentage, I can go ahead and simply click on the percentage symbol here, but it will not give me my decimal points. In this case, I can just simply go to my more number format options and indicate that it has 2 decimal points, and it will give me a sample over here. It looks exactly the same way. I can click OK, and that's it. Now, when it comes to your numbers, not sure if you noticed before, but when you write numbers down on a cell, like 1, 2, 3, 4, it will go ahead and shift to the right-hand side. And if you write text, it will go ahead and stay on your left-hand side. If at any point you want your numbers to appear as text and shift to the left-hand side, we can just simply go to More, and all we have to do is select Text and click OK. And there you go. As simple as that. Now, we can continue formatting here by going to our second format section, but what we're going to do is we're going to move on to our autofill. When it comes to Microsoft Excel is very smart, and it can recognize patterns as well. So, with that said, we currently have our products. Our products, we have our M1, M2, or M3. If we click on M1 and drag it across our M3, we can go ahead and now go to the bottom right-hand corner, and we can drag this across. If we drag this across, it will recognize the pattern, so the next one should be M4, 5, and 6. So I can go ahead and drag this across. As you can see on the bottom, it's already saying M4, M5, and M6. If I drag it even further, it'll say M7. We're going to keep it on M6. And it also recognizes a pattern for not only consecutive numbers, but also here I see I have 2, 4, 6. The next one should be 8, 10, 12. So I can go ahead and again, just simply click on our doodad, drag this across, and now we can go to the bottom right-hand corner and drag this across where again it should be 8, 10, 12. Perfect. It'll do the same thing if you currently have the cell formatted with a font on it. For example, I want this to be green. I want the numbers to be white. And I can go ahead and actually, let's do the whole thing. So I'm going to go ahead and select everything here, and I'm going to put green and white. There you go. So if I selected these cells and dragged it across, it should not only give me the pattern, but it should also recognize the font. So there you go. It gave me the font. Same thing for our columns. So I did this through our rows. If I drag this down, for example, right over here, I have 1, 2. The next one should be 3, 4, 5, 6. I can drag this down and it'll give me the same pattern. Same thing for dates. I have the first month of the year 2000. I have January 1st, February 1st. And if I drag these across, it should now follow that pattern. Now, when it comes to names, it'll be the same thing, maybe a little different. So in this case over here, I can simply start writing John Doe. I want the first name and last name to be referenced on the same cell. So I can just start writing down the name. So over here, John Doe. As I go down and I start writing Jane, it's already recognizing that pattern, and I can just simply click on where it says and white, and it'll follow that pattern for me. Now keep in mind that it'll also follow the pattern for punctuation as well. So if I undo this and I write John Doe, as you can see, I have no capitalization. It will also follow that pattern with no capitalization as well. As you can see, autofill is quite easy. Alrighty, now let's go ahead and move on to our math. Within our math, this is where we're going to spend a lot of time performing our calculations and our formulas as well. But first, we're going to go ahead and start with our total without functions. And then we're going to go ahead and move on with functions. Now, if we go to our total section here, we want to get the total for our gadgets, our gizmo, and our widgets for the month of January. Now, from here, we're going to simply start by typing down the equals symbol, indicating Excel that we're going to start a formula. So from here, now we can start referencing the cell. So over here, we have our B3, we have our B4, and we have our B5. We can easily type these down. So here we have our B3 plus our B4 plus our B5. Once we're done here, you can see that the cells that we referenced are highlighted here and are each represented by those colors to make sure that we're referencing the correct cells. Once we're done, we can simply click on Enter, and it'll go ahead and give me that total. Now, the great thing about doing it this way is that if we update the numbers above, for example, we want to update our gadgets to 2,400 and let's say 82, it will go ahead and now reflect our total as well, since that number is updated and we're referencing those cells. And we can do the same thing and reference our total to get our average as well. So currently our total is referenced by B8. So you can see we're currently on column B and on row 8. So we want to go ahead and now reference that column over here. Reference that cell over here. So what we're going to do here is we're going to simply select, type down equals, and we're going to reference that cell. So in this case over here was B8, and we're going to divide that by 3 by simply typing in the //3. I can click on Enter, and it'll give me the average. And again, if any of these numbers update, it will now not only update the total, but it will also update our average. Now, when it comes to getting our minimum without functions, there's no way to do that. In this case over here, you're just going to have to type it in manually. So here is 2052, and there you go. Now, the same way how we used our autofill, and our autofill also managed to get a pattern, it will also do the same thing here. So if I wanted to get my total and my average for the month of February as well as for the month of March here, I can just simply drag this across for my totals, and it'll also now reference these because it recognized a pattern. If I wanted to make sure that the pattern is correct and the right cells are being referenced here, I can just simply double click on this. And by double clicking on this, it'll tell me what formula it used. And as you can see, it's currently highlighting those particular cells. Same thing for our average here. I can just simply drag this across and it'll go ahead and reference those cells, recognizing that pattern. Again, if I needed to make sure it was the exact same cells it's referencing, I can just simply double click on this and I can see that it's referencing C8 divided by 3. Over here is D8 divided by 3, which gives me the average. But again, now go ahead and just click out. Just click on the escape key. And when it comes to the minimum, again, it's only going to be manually doing it if you're not using any functions. So over here I see it's 2,546. And over here I see it was 1,981. Now let's go ahead and start doing this with functions here. With functions, it's a lot easier. Now, as we select our total here, again, we want our total for the month of January. We're going to do exactly the same thing, this time with functions. I'm going to navigate you all the way over here where it says editing and indicate this over here where it says auto sum. It's indicated by what looks like a letter E. I believe this is a Greek letter for sigma. So in this case, we're going to simply select our auto sum, and it's going to try to guesstimate which cells you're going to reference, but we're going to go ahead and ignore that and simply select our B3 to our B5 by simply selecting that cell and dragging these across. As I can see, it's already given me that formula equals sum B3 colon B5. When it writes that colon down, it's indicating a range from B3 to B5. Once we're done, we can simply click on enter and it'll go ahead and give me that total. We can do the same thing for our average. So we can go back to our auto sum, but instead we're going to click on the downward arrow where it's going to give me the average option. So I can click on average. Again, select our B3 and drag it down to our B5. And as you can see, it says average B3 colon B5. I can click on enter. And this time around, when it comes to minimum, we do have a function for that. So again, we're going to go right back to our auto sum, click on the downward arrow here, and this time around, we're going to click on min for our minimum. So we're going to click on min, and we're going to go ahead and reference these cells by dragging it across once again and clicking on enter. There you go. It now gave me the minimum. Now there's multiple ways you can do this. If we go to our C13 here, we want the total for the month of February this time around. We can simply write down that exact formula right over here. So if we type whatever down, as you can see, it's already referencing that what we typed down over here within that particular cell. Or we can go to our function wizard. So our function wizard will pop up over here once we click on the FX. And from here, we can also indicate what we want to do. We can either search for what we want to do. For example, we can write down sum and click on go. And it'll give me all of the formulas here available for sum. But again, we're keeping it simple and clicking on sum. And now we want to go ahead and indicate the range. So from here, we're going to select our, what was it? That was our C3 to our C5. So we're going to select C3 and type down our colon, indicating a range, once again, to our C5. I can click on OK, and it'll give me that total. Same thing for average. If I go to my function wizard, I can simply select average. Instead of searching, I can simply see average right over here, and I can select average and click on OK. And I can do the same thing here, and now select that range. And in this case around, this will be our C3 to our C5. C3 colon C5. Click OK, and there you go. And once again, we can do that again by going into our function wizard, and this time around selecting minimum. I don't see minimum here, so I can simply select min or type down min in our search function, click on go, and I can see that's there, click OK, and again, our minimum for our C3, colon for that range, to our C5. I can click OK, and there you go. Now, when you double click on this, it'll go ahead and give you that formula that you used. In this case over here is average, C3, colon C5. And over here is sum, while down here is min. So if you don't want to go use the auto sum function here or the function wizard, you can go ahead and type that in as well. So we can simply write equals and type in sum. And in this case over here, we're going to open our parentheses to indicate which cells we want to reference. In this case, it's going to be for the month of March. So it's going to be our D3 to our D5. So I can write D3, colon, for that range, D5. And close the parentheses to indicate that we're done. We can click on enter, and as you can see, we did that manually. Same thing here, we can write down equals. We can put average here. And again, open the parentheses and indicate that range. So it's going to be our D3, colon, to our D5. And we can close the parentheses. There you go. And one last, since I'm a completionist over here, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to put equals min for minimum, open up the parentheses, and we're going to put D3, colon, for that range, D5. Perfect. As you can see, it's quite simple. We not only learned how to do it without functions, but we learned to do it with functions in 3 different ways. In this case over here, we learned how to do it by using AutoSum, by using our function wizard, or by typing in our functions ourselves. Alrighty, now we're going to go down to our sales tab, since I want to keep this video a little shorter. So in this case over here within our sales tab, you can see it's a little disjointed, a little all over the place. If I look at the top row here, I can see my location, my title, my last name, first name. And if I scroll, I will lose that, and I don't see the dates here either. If you want to go ahead and lock this section down, you can simply select the first row here, and we're going to go to our View tab. Within our View tab, we're going to have some section. Actually, Review. Nope, it's under. There it is. All right, so from here, we're going to have our freeze panes here. So here I can select freeze pane, freeze top row, and that's exactly what I want to do actually. We're going to select freeze top row. By selecting freeze top row, now if I continue scrolling here, it's going to lock our row 1 so I can know exactly what dates I'm referencing to and what names I'm referencing to as well. Now, if I go into my, let me see here, into my data tab, I can also organize this a bit so it could be so it could look a little bit more cohesive. And in this case, we're going to spend a little time here on our sort and filter. Within our sort and filter here is where we're going to go ahead and now sort this out. So I'm going to click on sort, and it's going to select the entire information on this particular worksheet. If we select the corner up here, it's going to select everything from this worksheet. However, if you want to go ahead and specify exactly what you want it to sort, then go ahead and just simply drag it across, just like I'm doing here, by simply clicking, dragging. Because if you have other information on this worksheet and you select sort, it may mess things up. So now that I have what I want to sort out selected, I'm going to go ahead and click on sort. And from here, I want to make sure that I add my location first. It's going to be from A to Z. Perfect. I can click OK. And now I have my location sorted out in alphabetical order. If I want to continue sorting this, I can click on sort, and I can add levels to this. So I can click on add levels for my title, another level for last name, and another level here for first name. So I can select that here. I can select the title, I can select the last name, and I can select the first name. From here, if you needed to move these up or down, you have the option to do that. If you wanted to sort it for first name first and then last name, for example. But I'm going to leave it as is and click on OK. And now everything looks a lot more organized here. Perfect. Actually, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to double click here to show the rest of the dates in between these particular columns. There you go. Now, if I wanted to filter this information, I can also have that by simply clicking on the filter. but we're going to select what we want to filter. So we're going to simply select our row 1. So we're going to select row 1 here. Now that everything is selected here, we're going to select on filter. And now, as you can see, it's giving me these downward arrows. But it's also covering some of the dates here. So I'm going to go ahead and format this just a little bit by simply making this a little bit bigger. I'm going to go back to my Home tab on my ribbon, and I'm going to align these text over here by selecting our first row. I'm going to align these text to the top. So I'm going to go to our alignment and align it to the top. There you go, perfect. Now I can see everything a lot more clearly. Now from here, if I wanted to continue filtering, I can simply clicking on the downward arrow, and I can now filter this. If I wanted to just see the New York and Los Angeles locations, I can just simply deselect Denver and Chicago and click OK. If I wanted to go ahead and filter by title as well, and I only want to see my associates, I can deselect my managers, my specialists, and my trainees, click OK. And now I only see my associates from my New York and Los Angeles regions. If I needed to clear this, I can simply go where the filter is. As you can see, there's a filter icon indicating that there's a filter on this section. I can click on this, and I can click on clear this particular filter. Or if I wanted to clear all the filters, I can simply go back to our data section within our ribbon, and I can go back to our sort and filter and click on clear. By clicking on clear, it'll go ahead and clear out those filters for me and leave everything as it was. Alrighty, now that we've learned how to discuss how to format this, let's go ahead and now discuss our printing options. You would think that printing it is quite simple, but when it comes to Excel, it's a little bit more complicated. But once you get to know the tricks, it's quite simple. So we're going to go to our Files section within our top of our ribbon, and we're going to click on Print. If we print this as is, if we pay attention to the bottom here, it's currently 4 pages long, and it's not very cohesive. So what I want to do here is I'm going to go to my section here where it says Portrait Orientation, and I'm going to change this to Landscape so I have more on the paper. I can also change my margins here, and I could put this onto narrow so it gives me more real estate on the paper as well. I could also customize my scaling here. So if I wanted to fit everything onto one page, you can do that, but it's going to be too much information. Or you can customize your scaling over here depending on the information you have. Now, one other thing here is I'm going to go back to Showcase. Is you can see that those boxes don't show up, and that's again, or those cells don't show up because we haven't selected borders. If you wanted to add a border, you can go back to your Home tab within your ribbon, and we can go ahead and select the borders. I'm going to go ahead and just simply select where I want to add those borders. So I'm going to select over here. And now I want to add borders on everything here. And perfect. Now that I selected the borders, it will go ahead and now come out within our printing when we print it. But I also want to know what page is what when we're printing. We can easily do that by going into our View tab. And within our View tab, we'll find our page break preview. Within our page break preview, it'll tell us page 1, page 2, page 3, and page 4 here. We can go to our horizontal and vertical lines, and we can also adjust this here. So if I wanted to make this a little neater, I can go ahead and put this so it can look a little bit more evenly. I can change this up a bit. And there you go. Now I have my page 1, 2, 3, and 4, and everything looks a little bit more organized. So if I go back to my files and I go to my print section, I can see now that those borders are added here, and I can see things are a little bit more organized. So I can stitch these together a bit more comfortably. Alrighty. With that being said, I just want to go ahead and recap today's session. So today we learned how to navigate the Microsoft Excel window. We learned how to format our workbooks, worksheets, and we learned how to work with data, formulas, and functions. And lastly, we learned how to explore our display options with our printing as well. So with that being said, I want to thank everyone for joining me today on this Get Started with Microsoft Excel training, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.